I'm Gab, he's Jules. Blue skies over West London, blue skies over Madrid with the Kylian has landed. It's all official. The Modric may be staying as well. I don't know why I'm putting definite articles in front of their names, but seems appropriate. But we have to start with this huge story breaking in the Premier League. It's a story that's actually dates back to March.
Story in a way.
But because of the secrecy, non-disclosure, blah, 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 which the Premier League do everything for good reason, they say, this was only really broken wide open by the Times on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It is a little complicated. I have a Q&A explainer up on the website, so you can delve more into that. In a nutshell, Manchester City, the champions of the Premier League, are suing the Premier League. Now, we say suing, they're not actually going to court because under the Premier League rules, they're going to go to an arbitration panel over this, and it's going to be three dudes who are going to decide, one picked by the Premier League, one picked by City, and the other two kind of agreed upon by both. But essentially, the core issue why they're doing this is when clubs receive sponsorship income from related parties or associated parties, as the Premier League like to call them, just to be different, as we've explained in the past. If they're related parties, they are assessed at what they call fair market value. So in other words, this is the reason why they can't do what your friends at Paris Saint-Germain did. Yeah, there you go. There's no 200 million. Etihad couldn't pay City 200 million to sponsor their shirts. Etihad, of course, the flag carrier from Abu Dhabi, City owned by members of the royal family of Abu Dhabi, so there's obviously a related party.
Yeah.
What they do is if they put in a 200 million sponsorship of City, the Premier League or UEFA, they go and they say, all right, we think this sponsorship is inflated, so we're going to assess it at what we call fair market value. They don't assess it. They get a bunch of nerds with analytics who look at this and say, okay, what's a comparable club to City? How much do they get from unrelated parties for a similar sponsorship? We think instead of 200 million, it should be worth 30 million or 50 million or whatever it is, right? And they do the same thing incidentally with transfers. So it's not like New York City FC can pay 200 million to take Calvin Phillips away and then City all of a sudden, we've made 200 million, right? They can see through that. So City are arguing that this violates competition law. They're arguing that a sponsor, even if it's a related sponsor, heck, it could even be another company owned by Mansour or Abu Dhabi United Group, they should be allowed to put in as much money as they want. This is going to go to an arbitration panel. Most of the Premier League clubs are siding with the Premier League, obviously, because they passed this by they need a 2/3 majority. If City, some Premier League clubs reportedly are Newcastle as one, reportedly Chelsea as well, possibly Villa, will back are expressing letters of support to City. They're backing City's position. And we'll see how this turns out. The main implication in this is twofold. One is that if this law is struck down, theoretically, but I don't think that'll happen. I'll explain why later. City or Newcastle could just their owners could pump as much money as they want into the club, and that part would go out the window, and then costs would rise presumably, and football would become harder to sustain financially. The other big implication is if it's not illegal to inflate sponsorships, then a lot of the 115 charges that City are facing in November, those would probably go out the window because it might have been illegal at the time, presumably. But, it's kind of like if you get done for marijuana possession and while you're awaiting trial, marijuana is decriminalized, a judge isn't going to throw the book at you.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible move from City, to be honest. Really bold. I'm not sure if it's a good look on them or not. It's clearly linked, like you said, to the 115 charges that we still waiting to see if they will get sanctioned, found guilty or not found guilty. I've got a few issues with it in the sense that they said in their statement that they might be forced to cut all the money they give to the community in Manchester because of that, which I find there's a touch of hypocrisy a little bit in this whole thing, right? Because they bought the club and saying we're gonna re-energize all the area and stadium, the community would be good. They've done a lot of amazing work there. And now, 15 years on or whatever, how many long it is, they're saying like, well, actually, we might need to cut this. And there's a few things like that I'm not too comfortable with.
100%. We're going to delve in this more on the Gab and Juls podcast, but just as a reminder, City made a profit of £80 million last year. They made a profit of about £40 million a year before that. And this was in a scenario where the fair market view, the fair market value rules had already been introduced. So that was with the sponsorships assessed at fair market value. And of course, as far as this being non-competitive, these rules making it difficult for City to compete, obviously they've won 6 of the 7 Premier League titles. Jules, the other piece to this, as you mentioned there, City, when we say City have said, now this is because there's a 165-page document which basically outlines City's case, which the Times has seen. So what you're about to hear about kind of City's version of events comes from the Times, which had access to this paper. How did they have access to these documents? Well, again, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me that you have to submit documents to the court or to the arbitration panel explaining what your case is going to be, and you have to submit them to the other side as well, right? So that they can prepare and counter, right? Just part of would be the equivalent of a discovery phase. God, I hate lawyers. Have I mentioned that ever?
You have.
So presumably the arbitration panel have these documents. City have these documents because they wrote them.
Yeah,
the Premier League have these documents.
Yeah.
One of those 3 parties said, hey, maybe it would be a good idea if we put this out in the public so that clubs out there realize what is about to happen, what could happen, and their fans could happen. People have compared this to the European Super League situation, was popular uprising from fans and whatnot. I'm not going to speculate which of those 3 parties, but it's obvious one of those 3 parties had a bigger interest to go and put this out into the open.
Yeah.
We're okay with that, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, again, I think this is of massive interest because it can be a game changer, really, if City wins. Like you said, Newcastle, Aston Villa, maybe Chelsea, and then maybe others. We look at this and say, okay, now we can spend as much money as we want. They might do, they might not. The question I have for you is like, okay, let's say City win this, and you can have Etihad paying $2 billion for your shirt sponsor because they're just owned by the same people and they can do whatever they want, right? But in Europe, UEFA will still have the same rules, right? So then what? You can't play in the Champions League because...
This is a really, really valid point, which I think a lot of the English media have, because look, there's so much to digest. I think they've kind of missed. I don't think City will go, I don't think they'll be the ones to go and abuse this in air quotes here, because they still have to be assessed by UEFA, and they still have to be assessed by UEFA at fair market value. Yeah. Otherwise, they don't play the Champions League. Otherwise, they can, I don't know, they can go and play Real Madrid in the European Super League. Although I guarantee you, European Super League also will have rules like this should it ever happen. Yeah. So from that perspective, this idea that, you know, City are going to turn into some enormous juggernaut, I'm not so sure. Now, obviously, UEFA's fair market value process is going to be different from the Premier League's to some degree, because look, Paris Saint-Germain, right? They got sanctioned in 2014, and then after that, they managed to make it work. They also grew revenues in other ways. So you never quite know what's going to happen. But yeah, I also don't think, and I genuinely don't believe this, I don't believe these, we present this cartoonish image of rich people, right? People from the Gulf, they're fans, they just want to win and so on. Or we bring up the sports washing aspect. I don't know that that's true for all of them. If they were to do this, right? Let's use the Etihad as an example, right? If let's say, oh look, we can go and let's increase the Etihad sponsorship to 500 million, and then we can go and we can buy Mbappe and Bellingham and whatever, and then we'll be even better, right? And dominate football forever. Well, it's 500 million that's going out of Etihad. So you're hurting one business, right? The Etihad business.
Well, unless they have that money available already.
But they have that money because they earned it, right?
Yeah, true.
So, like, I mean, Etihad has revenue, and they give some of the revenue in sponsorship because they think it'll make them more money. You can pressure Etihad to give you a bigger sponsorship, but if it becomes an absurd amount, like in the end, it's still money flowing out of Abu Dhabi.
True.
So you can either send that money to prop up Etihad and help Etihad grow, or you can put it towards Manchester City and help Manchester City grow. I think this whole thing in terms of the return on image and making Abu Dhabi more global and more recognized around the world, I kind of think you already got that from City. City aren't going away. People know what City is.
Yeah.
Why not spend that money on Etihad, which, more people take planes? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, at some point, these guys don't want to waste money. At some point, at some point you get bored, right?
Yeah, but...
Especially when the guy making the decisions, let's face it. Sheikh Mansour is not a football fan. Khaldoon Al-Mubarak, not a football fan.
I know, but this is working for them, right? It's working for Abu Dhabi, for their image, for everything. Like it's working for Qatar, like the Saudis are trying to do similar things.
I think they don't like having the regulation.
Yeah.
And they've made it very clear they don't like having the regulation. But I don't necessarily think, and this is speculation, that they're going to go and turn this and sort of drive home their advantage even more by going spending more absurd amounts of money of using this loophole. They just don't want anybody in their business. They don't want somebody telling them you can't do it. So this makes me think it is more about the 115 charges and the case 100%. In November and how this could impact them.
Do you think so? For me, this is all about the 115 charges. This is the counterattack in a way, in the sense that this is not a really good look on them, I think. And to be fair, the critics coming from England are quite strong over that.
Including from some Man City fans.
Yeah, indeed. And rightly so. But it's still not as bad as a look than if they get charged for what they did before and get either relegated, stripped of titles, heavily fined, whatever. And I think they're showing this, and maybe they know already that the 115 charges are going to be heavy on them. So they say, listen,
if they're found guilty,
they're found guilty, this is our last chance. Let's go and do this. And if we are successful, like you said earlier, the 115 charges are going to go into the bin, right? Because
although they still have a problem. I mean, I always bring this up with City fans, many of whom I think are reasonable and realistic about what's happened, some of whom are not, is what is your argument? Is your argument that you did not break these rules, or is your argument that these rules are unfair and they're anti-competitive and there's a cartel and blah, blah, blah?
Right, they've repeated for years that they've never broken the rules, but now they're saying that the rules are wrong and unfair.
Well, could they not have broken the rules? And at the same time, the rules are wrong and unfair, and that's why they're also seeking damages from the Premier League, because they could have made more money from Abu Dhabi or whatever. That's essentially, I think, what their argument is.
Yeah. And there are also some charges that are unrelated to those kind of sponsorship deals, right? The fact that Mancini is paid some by the club at the time he's at the club, and also by companies owned by the Sheikh. This is one of the charge, and that's got nothing to do in this case, right?
Yes, unless they argue that but because that we had to do that because those mean rules at the time with the fair market value forced us to pay money.
Okay, well, that's pushing it. Yeah.
I mean,
when are we going to know about this? Like, when is this happening, and when we will know?
So according to the reporting, the whole thing will be wrapped up in 2 weeks. So June 24th, I guess, would be 2 weeks from Monday. Presumably it's 2 working weeks, so maybe a little before that.
Yeah.
The way the arbitration works is it's all private. It's these 3 dudes in a room with going through evidence. Presumably there'll be witnesses called. And then afterwards, they come out and they issue their decision, and then with the written reasons afterwards explaining their decisions. This is based on a 1998 Competition Act that was passed here. Like, I think we've kind of given you facts so far. I think there's a point here to make about commentary, and I think what this is ultimately about, right? And what they have to decide on. Because City have said this is discrimination against people from the Gulf.
Yeah.
Again, according to the 165-page document that the Times are reporting on. And they made a reference to the tyranny of the majority, right? Which your first instinct is to say tyranny of the majority means what? Oh, look, it means democracy, right? Most people vote to give themselves rules. However, within democracy, you also have safeguards for the minority, right? So if a majority of people are, let's say, heterosexual, it's not right that they pass rules where they say, okay, homosexuals go to prison, for example. Right? I'm just using that as an extreme example. So there have to be safeguards for the minority within that. And so I think part of the argument is going to be like, hey, guys, this fair market value all works for you guys, but what about us, right? We're bringing money into the game, and you're stopping us from doing that. So that's going to be what they argue. And they're going to say something like, well, if we were a supermarket or if we were a car company, you wouldn't go and impose these rules on us. I think the Premier League's counter argument is going to be, well, hang on a minute. You're a football club that voluntarily joined, or that voluntarily is part of the Premier League, right? You're one of the 20 Premier League shareholders. You choose to be in this club. It's a bit like, Jules, let's say you join a golf club, right? Yeah. And on the golf club, a majority of the members, by 2/3 majority, say, okay, Jules, you're not allowed to wear your PSG kit on the fairway, right? When you're going around, no. Is that the tyranny of the majority, or is it that the club that you voluntarily joined?
Yeah.
Are they allowed to make rules like that?
Set rules, yeah, of course they are.
So then PSG's counter argument is saying, it's not PSG's, probably would be PSG's too. Man City's counter argument is saying like, well, wait a minute. What if I need to wear the PSG kit? What if that is the only way I can be a member of this golf club? You're discriminating against me. And you can make whatever rules you want within your golf club, unless those rules violate, in this case, UK law. So in other words, if they make a rule that says no people of color on the golf club, that's a violation of UK law.
Yeah.
Or no disabled or whatever, right? So that is kind of what we're arguing about here, which...
It's really complicated, to be fair.
It is complicated. I think fundamentally, this is a really bad look, I think, for the Premier League as an entity. Again, I'm not saying it's their fault.
Yeah, of course.
Because the whole strength of the Premier League, and look, this is the most successful sports league in the world, right? I'd even put it ahead of the NFL per capita. It might be different, but just because this is more global and so on, right? That success that was built for many years by Richard Scudamore is that when there were disagreements, when people were fighting amongst each other, it was always contained behind closed doors. It didn't go outside it. There weren't lawyers, Lord Panic, all this nonsense, right? Now, for whatever reason, that equilibrium has been broken.
Yeah.
And again, if you're City, you might argue, well, it's been broken because the other big clubs are threatened by us because we've been so good, because we've won 6 of the last 7 years, and blah, blah, blah. If you take the other view, that equilibrium has been broken because you, sirs, aren't running a sustainable business. You've been cheating. And we need to first and foremost safeguard the league. And part of that is to make it sustainable. And that's why we've got profit and sustainability rules. Because the other thing to bear in mind is, let's say the extreme scenario happens and you get these inflated sponsorships and now suddenly City can spend twice as much. All that does is it's going to raise the cost for everybody else that wants to compete.
Yeah. And
then the Premier League becomes less investable, less sustainable. Those private equity groups who come in and want to make a return for their investors, it's going to be suddenly less appealing because if I have to triple my cost to compete with Man City, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go, for sure.
Final point on this, and I think this is part of the discussion as well, and we're going to get to it separately later, but Pep Guardiola's contract is up in 2025. And again, this is conjecture and speculation, what I'm about to say. But when I look at this and ask myself, why are City doing this? Okay, one could be to somehow avoid the 115 charges. But you know what? The stain's still going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, some people will think that City have cheated regardless of what happened. You have to get cleared on every charge. We know that.
Yeah.
That's part of football fandom. But if they get away with it because it's deemed that these fair market value rules and these regulations were illegal, City will survive. They'll still be a Premier League club. They won't get the big fine and whatever. But it's going to be an even bigger stain. And I think at that stage, I'm wondering if they're not preparing themselves for some kind of exit. I mean, the ownership.
Okay.
And obviously, moving, with the fact that you're ready to turn the page, if indeed Pep leaves in 2025, as we said, right? You've left something behind. You've built something incredible that's written history. And now it's time to move on. Because I can't see them wanting to go and spend incessantly, ad infinitum. So I think there's a lot of scenarios there. The other scenario in this is geopolitics. Saudi, obviously involved now in the Premier League, much more involved in football. And there's people who are far better versed than me who've written about this. The relationship between Saudi and the UAE kind of goes up and down and up and down. And there's far more at stake right now, even than football. So I think that could come into it potentially as well. All right, enough Premier League City arbitration and bad, immoral lawyers doing bad, immoral lawyer type stuff on all sides. Let's do some quick hits instead.
Let's go, Gab.
Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid is all done, Jules. Tell us more. What is it that we don't know at this stage?
No, nothing that we don't know. We knew it was coming. We knew it was probably going to be on Monday night, and it was on Monday, and the Real Madrid's website crashed after they announced it. Their statement, if you wanted to go and read their statement on their website, you could not.
I never understand that. Those statements are all so basic and lame. Like, why do I feel the need to go and read the statement on the website?
Maybe you try to go on the website to try to buy the shirt already, and the shirt will be available on July the 1st, by the way, if you want the new Real Madrid shirt with Mbappe at the back, with the number 9, very likely as well. Incredible, really. He was so happy, so excited. 5-year contract, the highest earner in Real Madrid history, which is a detail, but still.
70 million we're putting on it?
So, 15 million euros net a year, but it's the image right that obviously he doesn't go 50-50 like the rest of the Real Madrid players. It's much higher than that on his side.
So did you say 15 million euros net?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about 30 million in grown-up talk.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is not outrageously more than others. It's just the image right.
It's about 50% more than the others, yeah. And it's a lot less than Cristiano. Right. Just want to make sure it's a lot less than Cristiano earned.
Yeah, but image rights make the big difference here. So he's very happy. He can't wait. He bought Gareth Bale's house in La Finca neighborhood.
He's not a golfer.
He's not a golfer. We said that the other day. He speaks Spanish already, so I think he will settle in really quickly. And already from Cristiano to Vinicius to Bellingham to Carlo, a lot of people have reached out to say well done and how they were excited to play with him next season. So he will be presented at the Bernabeu once France are out of the Euros and once the Euros is finished, so mid-July. And then we will see when he will make his debut. It could be in New York for the Classico on August the 3rd, or it could be for the Super Cup against Atalanta at the beginning of August as well. Meanwhile, Fabrizio Romano reports that Luka Modric has agreed a contract extension at Real Madrid.
Yeah, and look, we've been talking about this. Obviously, he's going to go in, presumably a reduced role, kind of have like a Kroos role, veteran guy to mix. It's only good if he stays. For me, the key thing is you're Real Madrid, you balance the books, drive the point home. And we don't have a number on Modric, how much. I presume he took a pay cut. The nice thing is that if Modric takes, like, say, a 50% pay cut, he'll still be around 10 million a year. And between Modric and Kroos leaving, you can pay for Kylian Mbappe. Nice one there, huh? Mbappe and France beat Luxembourg 3-0 in a warm-up friendly for the Euros. Jules, 1 goal and 2 assists for Kylian. What did you learn? And also, what did you make of his comments about Luis Enrique and Luis Campos?
Yeah, the comments were... I mean, that's the thing, really. On Tuesday night, when he did his press conference pre-match and said that he thought he was never going to play this season after telling the club in August that he would not renew his contract, so he would leave at the end of the season as a free agent. The club dropped him from the pre-season tour in Japan, and apparently he said he was told that he would never play again for PSG this season, so no football at all, like a blank season. He said that Luis Campos and Luis Enrique saved him and that he played because of them.
And saved themselves too.
Yeah, and I guess saved themselves. I don't know. What we know is that the club hasn't paid him his wages in April and May, and very unlikely to pay in June, that they haven't paid one of the bonuses that he was supposed to receive in February to save some money, like they kind of agreed. But now Kylian is saying that they agreed, but because he didn't play him at the end of the season, he doesn't agree anymore. So it's a bit messy. And in a way, it's sad that after 7 years, you kind of leave each other in a bit of a mess, I think.
L'Equipe reported that they're going to court over this.
It's through lawyers, your friends. I don't think it will go to court. They will find an agreement before. There's no writing agreement, so it was a gentleman agreement. So I don't think they need to go to court. It will be sorted before, but it's just a bit messy, and it's just.
Isn't it that woman who represents him? I'm blanking on her name. She's a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Not a real agent, but they do this without a written agreement. I just find that extraordinary.
I think it was more on the club side than his side, but it's a bit of a shame, I think. But everybody wants to move on, so I think they will find an agreement. Italy also got to play a pre-Euros friendly, and they drew 0-0 against Turkey. Gab, were you impressed?
No, I was not impressed.
It was bad.
I thought it was bad, and again, whatever. It's experimental side in some ways, but also maybe more so with the forwards. Solini got the start and kind of a new thing. But yeah, they it's very obvious when Barella's not there in midfield. Did not look good, but hey, if you're an Italy fan, you're used to Italy looking like rubbish in pre-tournament friendlies. All right, Jules, time for some more quick hits.
Yes.
Germany and Ukraine battled to a scoreless draw, but Jules, these highlights seem pretty one-sided to me.
I mean, the whole game was, not just the highlights for the ones who have watched, like me, this 0-0 draw. Loads of chances created by Germany, loads of shots that they had. They didn't score. Nagelsmann made a few changes as well after the break. Nothing to worry, I think, from a Germany point of view. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to score and to win. I think Ukraine have better players than to play this low block, super defensive approach kind of thing, you know? I was super disappointed by Ukraine. For Germany, it's kind of what I expected. They'll go far in their own Euros, I really believe that. Julian Nagelsmann said that Manuel Neuer will be the starting keeper for Germany at the Euros, Gab. And obviously, Marc-Andre ter Stegen is not very happy with it.
Well, he did it. He did it in his own very classy way because he's a classy guy. He says it's an unpleasant situation, and I don't agree with the manager's decision. Now, I have max respect for ter Stegen. I think he's a phenomenal keeper. I might even have him ahead of Neuer. Maybe he's going for Neuer for his experience and for for chemistry or whatever. I think you should say I disagree. I think if you're on the bench, I think it's legitimate for ter Stegen to think that he's a better keeper than Manuel Neuer. And I like it when people are honest. Nobody should take him for task or criticize him for airing his views. He did it in a very civil way, and it's Nagelsmann's decision. Yeah. England rolled to a 3-0 win over Bosnia with all three goals coming in the last half hour. The first one from Cole Palmer on penalties.
Yeah.
Jules, are you going to be mean about Southgate again?
No, I mean, there's nothing to be mean for right now. It's a bit too early before the tournament. I was not too impressed, which I think is fair to say, by that first half. I like Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield. I don't know if he's good enough to play there during the Euros when the opposition is better than Bosnia, who were, let's be honest, really bad. But you've won. Harry Kane played a little bit. He's fit. You had Cole Palmer, who did really well. You saw Eze, who did well as well.
There's nothing to read into this. And there's 59 substitutions at the end. Dzeko was like the only guy left on the Bosnian bench by the end.
But we know that James Maddison is not going to go to the Euros, one of the 7 players to be cut. I've got more of an issue about Southgate taking 33 and having to cut 7. We did the same in France in 1998, and yet in the end, Jacquet won the World Cup. That was a mistake. I don't think it's good for players to be cut off like that. We know that Curtis Jones is going to be cut. We know that Jared Kwanzaa is going to be cut as well. There's 4 more to follow. I don't think this is a good situation. I'm not really sure why he did it, to be fair. But this is, I guess, the most important thing this week, not the 3-0 win against Bosnia. Gab, we saw Trent Alexander in midfield. We just mentioned it. You and Ogie did your Liverpool keep and dump and suggested that this is going to be one of the biggest calls this summer from the club.
Absolutely. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Like Salah and Van Dijk, the difference is Salah and Van Dijk are obviously older. You just give them, you let them decide closer to the end of the season. You don't extend them now. That's pretty obvious with Salah and Van Dijk. With Trent, it's a different situation. You have to rely on Slot to decide, all right, where does he fit in, especially considering you've got the heir apparent in Connor Bradley. Could he fit in as part of your midfield core? Maybe. You already have a bazillion midfielders. Or could he move on? He's got a year left.
You would not let him go if you're Liverpool. Why would you let him go?
If the alternative is to give him a giant contract, and then maybe Slot says, yes, but I like Bradley at right back and in midfield. I like McAllister and Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott and whatever. And
yeah,
I if you get a big enough offer, and he's willing to go from a Real Madrid, for example, or a Bayern Munich. I mean, Bayern Munich probably not, but why not?
Yeah.
Lenny Yoro is a hot name in the transfer market
It
this
is.
summer, with the 18-year-old Lille central defender linked to everyone from Manchester United to Real Madrid to Liverpool.
And to PSG and to Chelsea as well. Everybody's after him because he's got 1 year left on his contract, and this is the deal. He leaves this summer, so he can pick his destination. Really, it will be around the 50 million euro mark, which is a lot of money for an 18-year-old.
50 million for an 18-year-old with a year left on his contract.
Yeah, but he's that good, and that's what so many clubs are behind him. If he was not good, there would be so many clubs after him.
If he was not good, then Didier Deschamps will be taking him to the Euros and playing him because he has no idea how to evaluate center halves. Sorry, that's just the William Saliba in me talking.
But I mean, if there was less competition at centre back, he would have gone to the Euros. He's going to go to, well, they wanted him to go to the Olympics. He's not going to go unless his next club agrees to it. I've got no issue with 50 million for him. He's that good. I can understand why all those clubs are after him. I think his preference right now is Real Madrid. But we'll have to see. I think there could be a bit of a bidding war, to be fair, or a war simply to get him. So we'll have to see.
Why not run your contract down and go as a free agent next year?
No. The agreement with the club is he doesn't want to leave as a free agent. So he will go this summer to give the club some money. And I think that's the right thing to do. And then we see after that. Antonio Conte to Napoli is finally official, Gab.
Yeah, we've talked about this endlessly, but we do have the numbers now. It's 3 years, 12 million euros gross a year, which is an enormous amount of money. And the fun fact that Aurelio De Laurentiis, when they asked him about, but your personalities and Conte's personality, how's that going to work? And he said, well, a few years ago, I was on holiday in the Maldives, and so was Conte, and we got to hang out together. And I'm trying to imagine, how does 7-year-old Aurelio De Laurentiis and Conte, who probably goes and does Pilates and wind sprints up and down under the sun on the beach when he's on vacation. Really? Do you really think that special chemistry was built there? I don't know. Kevin De Bruyne was asked about moving to Saudi Arabia and did not exactly rule it out completely. Are we reading too much into what he says? I mean, I've got the quotes here if you want to summarize them, but
basically,
he's talking like a grown-up.
Yeah, he said that at his age, and he's 32 years old, he would be open to everything. And he says, if I play 2 years there, I will make so much money. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be disappointed, I won't lie, because he's still way too good for the Saudi League, I think. But maybe he sees things very differently. He's got... I mean, the issue, I've got issue with the money because he's earned enough money already. How much money do you want? I mean,
he says if he can make more money in 2 years.
Sure.
Which, by the way, I don't know that it's true. I don't know if they're going to keep chucking money at these players.
True. But he will still make a lot of money if he stayed at City for another 2 years.
He's only got 1 year left.
1 year left on his contract. Another 1 year. And I think in a year time, he could still go to Saudi. He could still go somewhere else. City might extend him. You don't know. I'd be sad to see him go. That's for sure. And sticking with City, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Pep Guardiola's contract expires in 2025, and the club's chairman, Khaldoun Al-Mubarak, spoke about it.
Yeah, so he does this every year around this time. He sits down with somebody from the club who pretends he's a journalist and asks them questions. It is obviously very scripted. This came out on Wednesday, but it was taped before the news broke of the deal of City taking legal action against the Premier League. I was just shocked by one question. He asked about Pep. And then he says, this decision on his future is always a decision that we will take together. And I'm like, excuse me. You won't take it together. He will take it because he has the expiring contract. I don't know what he means.
Yeah.
And obviously the guy who interviews him doesn't follow up because, hey, that's not what he does. But I'm thinking to myself, no, this is not. You're not taking it together. He's taking it. You can make him an offer, whatever. You can talk about your plans. But ultimately, come June 30th, 2025, if he does not resign, you have zero control over Pep.
Yeah.
Conor Gallagher is 1 year away from free agency and has been linked with moves to Tottenham and Aston Villa for a fee of around 50 million. Jules, I know you're a huge fan.
Huge fan, as you know. Great technical player, especially. I don't know. We said 50 million for Euro. You thought was too much. 50 million for Gallagher. I don't know. I can understand if Chelsea needs to sell to balance their books a bit, recoup some money because he's obviously...
Where is he a better fit, Spurs or Villa? You say neither.
No, he doesn't strike me as an edge player.
No, he does not.
For how much the midfield is important for Ange Postecoglou. For Villa, maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. I mean, if I was Spurs of Villa, I would not sign him anyway. So it's just me. I'm sorry, Connor. It's just me. And more Chelsea, more midfield. Enzo Maresca, the new Chelsea manager, would reportedly like to be reunited with Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, who did so well for him at Leicester last season.
Yeah, and they're talking about a £40 million deal. This sounds like a lot of money, but that says Dewsbury Hall is good at what he does.
Yeah.
And there's no question, I think Chelsea are short in midfield, especially if Maresca ends up playing 4-3-3, which is what he played most of last year. Morocco beat Congo 3-2 in a women's friendly that was anything but friendly. Jules, we're not used to seeing fists fly in the men's game anymore, let alone the women's game. What did you make of Congo's Ruth Kipoi punching Yasmin Rabet in the face?
Incredible scenes. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out, because it's a proper punch as well. It's not just argy-bargy. It's a proper punch in the face.
It's a glancing blow because she doesn't, but she's fortunate. I don't think she expects it coming. And
no, and the referee is right there. Incredible. I didn't know there was so much tension between Morocco and Congo. I don't know if there was previews. I tried to look for previews. Could not find any beef that could have happened before. I mean, Morocco are, with South Africa, the two best teams in Africa for the women's game. But maybe there's a rivalry somewhere that I've missed, or maybe it was just
I don't remember
reaction.
the last time I saw a punch to the face in the men's game. You really have to go way back. So obviously not what anybody wants to see.
That's true. Cody Gakpo sat down with our own Tom Hamilton and shed some light on his thought process, Gab, when it comes to transfer.
Okay, I don't know if this is cool or it's just weird. So effectively, it's the end of the summer transfer window in 2022.
Yeah.
He's still at PSV Eindhoven. This is about 6 months before he moves to Liverpool. Yeah. He has offers from Southampton. He's offers from Leeds United. He can also stay at PSV. And so he said, so he prayed to God. Fine. He's a Christian. That's fine. But then he said, God, I have three situations here. If I score once in this game, it means I'm going to Southampton. If I score twice, it means you want me to go to Leeds. If I score three times, then I'm staying at PSV Eindhoven. Had no option for not scoring at all, which is weird. Anyway, he ends up scoring three times. They score 7 goals. They beat Volendam. And he ends up staying. And 6 months later, he moves to Liverpool in all's history. This is like something a child would do.
Why?
Listen, I'm not going to get into what anybody's personal relationship with God is. But when you say, and I'm all for the God give me a sign thing, right? But this isn't God giving you a sign. This is you giving yourself a sign when you're actually out there playing football and trying to score. I don't follow this.
He believes God is with him when he plays, so it would guide him through that game to score 1, 2, or 3, and then that would impact his decision.
And there's no chance he wouldn't score at all or get injured after 3 minutes.
But, I mean, at least he's open and talks about it.
No,
it's
look,
better than if he had just said, well, I wasn't sure what to do, so I stayed, and then, you see what I mean?
More power to them. I don't know what this guy's like when he goes out and orders dinner off the menu. I don't.
No, there's a story about Wooden Hippo as well. It's a great article that you can see on the ESPN website.
Gonzalo Inacio continues to be linked with Manchester United, Jules.
Your boy.
Good fit or just the right agent?
Both, I think. Right agent for sure. Good fit, yes, because United needs some centre-backs. Come on, we can't have another Johnny Evans, Maguire.
The only thing is he, as you know, he's my boy.
He's your boy.
I really like him.
Yeah, I'm more of an Antonio Silva guy, to be fair.
Okay. But in terms of fit, if you assume, the best center back at Manchester United right now, assuming everybody's fit, is Lisandro, right? Although I think Rafael Varane is still under contract until June 30th.
Yeah,
but whatever,
that's true,
right?
That's true.
Lisandro Martinez is small. Gonzalo Inacio, also small.
Yeah.
Ball playing, you'd have 2 ball playing guys, which is fine, but in the Premier League, I don't want to be obsessed with height, and obviously Lisandro.
That's why I would go for Silva more than Inacio if I was United, and if I was Liverpool and I was looking for a centre back to replace Matip. Okay, I don't think they would take somebody as expensive as Ronaldo Inacio because you already have Konate and Konsa. But exactly to play with Virgil. For United, I think Silva is a great fit. I think you could make it work with Inacio as well, but one of those two, I'd be very happy if I was a United fan anyway.
Mm.
Fenerbahce president Ali Koch says that Mourinho and his staff are costing the club 12 million euros a year. So him and his staff, Gab is still one of the highest paid coaches in the world.
Yeah, and look, I know we've often been. There's 2 points to make this. First of all, I know obviously his salary is going to get out in the media. To have your boss go and talk about your salary and how much it's costing him, it does turn the screws in terms of pressure a little bit, right?
We kind of know anyway, right? That he's in his ballpark.
Yeah, it's a big difference when the guy comes out and actually says, "Ah, ha, 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 look,
Maybe.
you know, it's like, we're paying Jules so much money," you know, like it's a bit, yeah. But beyond that, the reality is, would we be talking about the new Fenerbahce coach as much as we are if his name wasn't Jose Mourinho?
No, he's still a massive star. You saw the welcome he got.
If Carlos Corberán was the new Fenerbahce coach, we probably would not be discussing this. So he brings a level of attention and sponsorship and so on, which is why he gets paid more money. Like, if they can afford him, more power to him. I mean, my view in general is that most coaches should not be paid this much money, period. But whether Mourinho or otherwise. But he does bring that
Something,
value add,
yeah,
which
for
somebody
sure.
else wouldn't bring. Mikel Arteta is apparently a big fan of Girona's Viktor Chigankov, who is available for some 30 million euros. Jules, this makes 0 sense to me, but maybe it makes sense to you.
No, I mean, I haven't heard this one. A wide player like a winger like Tsigankov is not the priority right now. Arsenal,
I would think they have enough wide players. They have
Yeah,
5, 6, 7.
definitely. And they're looking more at number 6, number 8 than a wide player. So it might be on a list somewhere. And I'm sure there's a few clubs that looked at him because he was really good with Girona this season, for sure, for his first year in La Liga. But for Arsenal, it's definitely not the priority right now for them. Italy beat Portugal 3-0 to win the European Under-17 Championships. Gab, how excited is it?
I'm super excited. It is exciting. Look, these guys may not make it, but by the way, if you haven't seen the highlights, Italy's second goal, the one scored by which was Kamada's first goal.
Yeah, wonder kid.
This is one of those viral
Wonderful, yeah.
individual goals. Goes and like beats 3 players, puts it away. It's not just about Kamada. It's Liberali. There's a lot of guys. Kamada, by the way, is the guy who, when he turned 16, was included in the Milan squad. Made his debut for Milan.
Came on,
When they were short on players, like, you don't want to pile pressure on them. We know so many of these guys don't make it. But it's nice to see at youth level a bunch of Italian players actually coming together and winning things. And it's not the only time it's happened at U17 level. And, I know France got stuck with the bad draw, and that's why you're out. But, I think this is meaningful.
Yeah, and Italy have been the best team, to be fair.
Meanwhile, England, without Mary Earps, beat France 2-1 in the women's game after losing the reverse fixture.
Yeah,
Jules?
on the same score. Yeah, in Saint-Etienne on Tuesday night, Gab. The first half was really good, to be fair. Georgia Stanway with a wonderful goal. Alessia Russo with the other one. They were 2-0 up. France was so disappointing in that first half. Much better in the second half. They put England under so much pressure. Just could not come back to at least get a draw. So it's a good win for England. And they needed that win after the draw against Sweden and the defeat in Newcastle against France 4 days before, which makes them now second in their group, 2 points behind France in the qualifiers for the Euros 2025. So big win for them.
Are they likely to go through now? Is there a lot to play? Because I know Sweden obviously are very good.
They will have to go to Sweden. So this.
So you
will be
lose that,
decided.
then they fall back to third place.
Third, and then you go into a playoff. You can still qualify if you finish third, but you have to go through a playoff.
It's those exciting Euro qualifying formats, right?
exactly.
3 out of 4.
Igor Tudor is no longer the Lazio manager after just 3 months in charge. Gab, were you expecting this?
Well, the writing had been on the wall for a while. I did not see eye to eye with Claudio Lotito. Obviously, he came in for Sarri. A lot of it supposedly had to do with transfers. Obviously, they committed a lot of money to Guendouzi and so on. I can't help but wonder, why didn't Daichi Kamada stick around? If the problem was that he didn't play with Sarri, why don't you wait to get a new manager before you let him go? Unless you decide
because Tudor wanted to keep him,
So it looks like Baroni, who obviously had a standout season this year, and Miroslav Klose, former Lazio legend.
And
Miro
Sergio
Klose.
Conceição as well, I think, which is a problem
I think
for
he's going
Marseille.
to Marseille.
Well,
It's not a problem for Marseille.
maybe not anymore.
Come on, man. Honestly,
maybe not anymore. Who would you pick between Lazio
it doesn't matter who I want to pick.
and Marseille? If you Conceição, you go to Marseille ahead of Lazio.
If
I don't.
I'm just imagining they're all puppets on a string for Uncle George, especially Marseille, right?
Well,
So, when Marseille, when Uncle George says jump, I'm assuming McCourt says, how high, sir? Like, right?
well, why?
Because they dump Gattuso on them, they're going to dump Conceição on them. Was that finished third in Portugal?
I know, but...
Well, come on, man. At some point, do we have to... Yes, Sergio Conceição is a former... To me, look, I could be wrong on this. To me, it feels like, we're about to sign with Marseille. Let me see if we can squeeze some more money out of them, or better terms, and let's go and pretend that Lazio are in for him. Lazio don't want to spend money. Conceição will cost you money, right? Baroni is going to coach for free. Klose, I have no idea. I presume he will pay to be the Lazio manager. This is the reality of it, And look, if you want to argue that higher profile league and whatever, but I don't know. I just find this. I just find these clubs that are in this orbit that can't think for themselves really depressing.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Erling Haaland bags a hat trick as Norway beat Kosovo 3-0. Jules, we're going to miss him at the Euros.
We will, Gab. You're right. I mean, this was Kosovo. He could have scored 4 or 5, to be fair. There's something in this Norway team because they are too good to miss out on the Euros for which everybody qualifies, let's be honest, right? Literally. Luxembourg were closer to the Euros than Norway. So somewhere, and I know they had a group with Spain and Scotland, and the Scotland team that was outstanding in the qualifiers. So, okay, I get it. But he should be there, so should Norway, so should Odegaard, and etc., etc. So let's hope that this is the last big tournament that they miss, and that, or certainly the Euros. The World Cup might be different, but at least for the Euros, that they will be there in 4 years' time. Because, you want the best player.
He has 30 goals in 32 international appearances for Norway. I'm going to assume if he doesn't get... That's pretty much a goal a game, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming if he's not going to get injured, he's easily going to win more than 100 caps for Norway, right?
Mm.
Although then they don't qualify for tournaments. It ends up playing fewer games.
And it's a bit less.
But I'm just wondering, should Cristiano be looking over his shoulder a little bit?
I don't know, because in the Nations League, they obviously are in the lower leagues because so he keeps playing against teams like Kosovo where he scores 10 goals every game. So, you're right, maybe. One to keep an eye on, for sure.
But not Christine Sinclair. She's
No, nobody can ever reach.
Maybe Cristiano if he plays until he's 60.
Yeah. Vincenzo Italiano, meanwhile, looks set to replace Bologna's Thiago Motta, who's on his way to Juventus.
I think I gotta applaud Bologna. I gotta applaud Bologna, Saputo, all those guys.
I agree.
Italiano's a great coach, and he's going right into the right type of setup. He reached 2 conference finals with Fiorentina. He's not perfect. I am slightly surprised he didn't wait around to see if a bigger team, but you know what? Build your CV. Go there. Go at Bologna. You know all about them. The way they work is already along similar lines. As for Thiago Motta, announcement presumably over the weekend or maybe next week. Carlos Corberán, your friend Steve Cooper, former Forest coach, and Ruud van Nistelrooy are reportedly in the frame to replace Enzo Maresca at Leicester. Jules, this is quite the spread of the 3 managers, not just in the way they look,
but their style as well,
But their style as well.
Yeah, very, very different. I mean, we often say that, right? When we see short list of clubs and we're like, why are they all contenders when they are also different in terms of football style? You thought that as an owner or sporting director, you say, okay, I want a coach that plays like this. So your short list is only coaches that play like the way you want your team to play. I don't know. I would like Ruud van Nistelrooy to be back to England and see Cooper and Corberán. We know we've seen them either in the Championship and Premier League for Cooper. Van Nistelrooy is a little bit different. For the people who didn't follow him at PSV, that was a good season. I think of the 3, he'll be my pick.
All right. I'm a Carlos Corberán guy, as you know. So.
Yeah. Ligue 1 is still without a TV deal for next season, Gabi, which is very concerning. Obviously, they want €1 billion. Not really. They ideally, between domestic rights and international rights, €900 million would do. Last year's deal was worth 660, so quite a big rise. They need, and Gab, some at the league are thinking about a DTC solution. What do you think?
DTC, direct to consumer.
So you create your own channel to show the games, basically.
It's basically streaming, right? It's basically like the league says, okay, we're going to produce the games and we're going to sell them directly to the consumer. This is something that they've talked about. They talked about here in the Premier League, saying like, oh, it'll be a Netflix of sports, and we'll just cut out the middleman, right? Nobody's ever had the courage.
There's a reason why
to do this,
Yeah.
and you think it's what? Because people wouldn't.
So they want this Ligue 1 channel to be sold for £25, €25 a month, right? So to make money and to get to this level of TV rights that they want, they need 2.5 million subscribers for a channel with only Ligue 1 matches that would not even broadcast 24/7 because wow, I mean, how many replays of PSG Reims can you show? Do you see what I mean?
PSG, many, but I worry if it was like Clermont against
Exactly.
Reims. Yeah.
So I don't believe in the 2.5, and I don't think the league believed that they could attract 2.5 million subscribers just for that Ligue 1 channel. So it's only Ligue 1. They would not be showing anything else apart from Ligue 1 matches.
What if they just sold the games individually?
That's
€5 or whatever. No,
That's not the idea. The idea is to create this channel.
no I know that's the idea, but like, have they done any studies on this? Do they?
Well, I think it's their plan B. Their plan A was that beIN Sport and Canal Plus would find an agreement somewhere, and between them would buy the rights for France domestically. The international rights, funnily enough, have doubled from last season. They are selling well, and there's still some countries where they will be selling. Domestically, there's an issue. Canal Plus are not on board anymore after being for so many years the biggest partner of the league. They're at war with them. And without Canal Plus and beIN Sport, obviously, have been losing money for so long that now they are a bit in austerity. So they can't go and spend 800 million on just the league and rights for themselves. So I just don't know where this is going. But this is terrible, really, Gab. When you think about it, the season starts in 2 months.
They'll find a solution. But can you not go to the boss of beIN Sport and tell him, hey, look, with all the money you're saving on Kylian, why don't you show some love to...
I think they're trying, and I think Nasser wants to help, and beIN wants to help. They just can't take it all on themselves. It's not possible.
Lille have said au revoir to Paulo Fonseca, who we expect to be named as Milan manager next week. Jules, I want to ask you about his replacement.
Yeah.
The wonderfully Bruno Genesio.
Yeah, Pep Genesio.
And also, how do you assess his time at Lille? Because Milan fans, I was with them last night, they're all really grumpy and down on
Why?
Paulo Fonseca.
Why though?
Because they feel that he hasn't won anything at a big club in the big five leagues.
Yeah, which is true.
Which is sure, but
Yeah, and I guess
Pep hadn't won anything until he did.
Yeah, I know. And maybe his stint at Roma didn't convince people. I'm not sure, but at Lille, it'd been incredible. They finished 5th and 4th with quite a low budget. He plays young players. He improves them. He plays wonderful football, building up from the back. I think there will be a lot of fun for Milan fans to see him because he's the ground running very quickly and instill his ideas very quickly too. So you see a clear improvement from the team once he arrives in the first few games. So I'm all for that. I think he's a great choice if I was Milan. Far more than a Lopetegui, for example, who in the end didn't happen.
Right.
We know that. But for me, Fonseca is perfect.
He's also handsome and a good talker. And if you get really bored, if you get tired of him, you can just ask him to put on his stupid Zorro mask again.
Emilio Ensue, who was the top scorer, if you remember, at the last AFCON for the Equatorial Guinea and played for them for 11 years, right? So why has he now been banned, Gab, from all football for 6 months after FIFA decided that he was never actually eligible to play for them? That's an incredible story.
His story is so weird and so complicated. So Emilio Nsue is Spanish.
Yeah, born in Spain,
obviously of Equatorial Guinea. Obviously, Equatorial Guinea was I don't know if the colonies a term, but it was a territory of Spain. Historically, he played for Spain at youth level, and this was back at the time where you couldn't then switch, or you didn't have the same procedure then if you played at youth level in an official game, you could switch. So he was never eligible. Apparently, nobody at CAF or even at FIFA, because they did play World Cup qualifiers with him,
Right.
ever bothered to check.
So he got a passport, I guess, right? Or he doesn't even have a passport. Because if he has a passport...
But the rules at the time, though, You couldn't do that. This is
Right.
11 years ago. I don't know. This is such a bizarro story. It's a serious. I mean, I'm assuming there'll be some kind of appeal. They're going to sort this out one way or the other. I think FIFA also annoyed because they asked them to submit when the case came forward.
Yeah.
They asked him to submit documents and respond and stuff, and he never did. So I don't know what this guy's problem is either, frankly, Emilio.
Don't know. But Equatorial Guinea played already 2 games, I think, in their World Cup qualifiers,
Exactly.
and they've lost those games on like they had to
They
forfeit.
had to forfeit them.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know if
he
they're going to
scored.
appeal. Like it's
So strange.
Ross Barkley is reportedly on his way to Aston Villa. Jules, you did not want to do this quick hits.
No.
Like, hey,
Why?
this is Ross Barkley.
Why was it Ross Barkley from Luton to Aston Villa? We're
It's
not
a
even
wonderful
sure.
comeback story. Ross Barkley
Yeah.
comes out. He is the phenom. He is Everton's version of Steven Gerrard.
Yeah.
Right? Here's a guy who's bigger and stronger and more talented than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then he gets injured. Then he loses his way. Then he's terrible. Then he bounces around.
Then he goes to
Then
France, and then that's changes
goes to
everything.
Fran- Did he go Chelsea before France? I forget.
Yeah,
But,
Chelsea and then
bad
Nice.
at Chelsea, bad in France.
No, it was not that bad in France.
Yeah, wait, but playing
Well
with the
done at
Muppets.
Luton. Well done for him if he gets one last big contract, because obviously I think he's 31 this year.
I like the comeback.
You like the comeback?
You don't like the comeback,
I don't know. I think he's going to become a squad player at Aston Villa.
which is fine. It's not like Villa don't have that many guys in midfield.
No, I know, but we talk about Conor Gallagher going to maybe Aston Villa.
Weston McKennie maybe
Ross
going to
Barkley.
Aston Villa.
That's a lot of players linked with Aston Villa. Good for you, Ross. Really good for you. You're right. The comeback
Don't
is
be
great.
a hater with
I'm
Ross
not a hater
Barkley.
with Ross. I'm just saying, this is not really. This doesn't passionate. Not too passionate about that. That's all. Not that I'm passionate much by the next one either. But Chucky Lozano's next up could be in MLS. Our expansion team, San Diego FC. You're happy with this move?
I think it's a great move. I think he can obviously still play. Obviously, he's Mexican. Moving to San Diego is about... I don't think you can move any closer to Mexico while staying in the U.S. at an MLS team than going to San Diego.
That's true.
So, by all means, it's a marquee signing for a franchise that's going to start playing in 2025. Nothing wrong with
what
it.
about
I do
Lewandowski?
wonder what he's going to do until then. But
Yeah, true. What about Lewandowski maybe going to LA Galaxy and could be reunited with Marco Reus? Do you think Barcelona could let him go? Do you think they would be tempted to let him go? And do you think he could be tempted to go to MLS?
But on this Lewandowski business, I've really had it with this guy. If you go, if you go and you help, I'm not saying you got Xavi sacked single-handedly, but it's obvious that he was one of the people who did not see eye to eye with Xavi, right?
Yeah.
Just so much reporting on him.
definitely.
So wait, let me get this right. You get the club to ditch Xavi and humiliate one of the greatest ever players, right? You bring in your pal Happy Hansi, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, "See you guys, I'm off to LA to go to go play with freaking Marco Reus." Are you serious? Like really? Like if you're Barcelona, yeah, if LA comes with a big fat transfer fee and promises to take his enormous
And you
wages
get rid of
away,
it. Yeah, you get rid of it.
maybe you don't have a choice, right? Maybe Laporta finally runs out of levers. But it would reflect really, really badly on Robert Lewandowski if he did this. Really, really badly. Geofan Bronckhorst is the new coach of Besiktas. Jules, you're excited, right?
I am super excited. I love Giovanni Von because I saw him at Wembley on Saturday.
He's one of the
for
good
Champions
guys in
League
the game.
final. He was there. He said hello to me, so I don't know if he's maybe a fan of the show. But yeah, I mean, he hadn't coached since he got sacked by Rangers in November 2022. That year that he spent there was not too bad, not great either. I mean, the first season, he arrived in November the year before. That was really good. The start of the following season before he got sacked, not so much. So 2 years without coaching. He traveled a lot. He studied a lot of teams and coaches, etc., etc. And we see, but Mourinho at Fenerbahce, Van Bronckhorst at Besiktas with a new two new managers, Galatasaray winning the league, loads of young players, exciting players, loads of more experienced players still being involved there. I think the Turkish league next season could be very, very cool, very exciting. It's good.
And an Italian guy managing the Turkish national team. That's not
Exactly,
bad.
yeah. Who, by the way, could be the dark horses. I mean, I know every time we name them as our dark horses and then we we get banned. But hey, let's see. Watford have announced that they are selling up to 10% of the club to individual investors, meaning fans, right? For £12.44 a share. Gab, what's different about this?
I don't. So obviously, there's other clubs who are, like, say, floated in the stock market. You can go and buy their shares if you want to. I think what's interesting here is they're hoping to raise 17.5 million, which would value the club at 175 million, which, for a club that did poorly in the championship last year, is a lot of money. Equally, apparently, they made a pre-tax profit of 24 million last year. I'm not giving investment advice here. I think it's good to have fans involved. They seem to be aggressively going after them. Obviously, if you have 10% of the club and the Pozzos have 90%, you won't be in charge of anything. But it seems attractively priced. You have to buy at least 4 shares, so that means that for less than £50, you own a share of the club. And they're not going to make profits every year, but maybe they'll go back in the Premier League. Maybe the club will be sold if they get back up to the Premier League. Again, valuation seems high, but who knows?